Alyssa Archuleta. I'm one of the public information officers here on the Middle Fork Complex Fire. And welcome to our Monday night community meeting. Thank you for coming and thank you for all your continued support through this. So on tonight's agenda, we will be hearing from the incident meteorologist, Nick Nosler, the fire behavior analyst, John Kern, operations, Donovan Walker, Isaac Crowning with the strategy, Michael Engelhart as the agency administrator, and the incident commander, Trent Ingram. So our first person, Nick Nosler, could come up with fire weather.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nick Nosler, incident meteorologist trainee. If you don't know what an incident meteorologist is, we provide weather support to wildfires at the wildfire. Tomorrow will be pretty similar to what we have today. We will have some more clouds in the sky, but we will also have some stronger winds. Wednesday, we do have a fire weather watch in effect. The Boise National Weather Service office just issued that this afternoon for some thunderstorms, which could have gusty outflow winds. Winds will also increase on Wednesday ahead of an approaching cold front. That cold front will start to provide some relief as it moves through Wednesday evening, Wednesday night. Much cooler temperatures, high RRH, and good chances of rain starting Wednesday night and continuing through much of Thursday. Temperatures will be about 30 degrees cooler on Thursday compared to what we have been seeing, so it's a pretty significant change. And it'll be mostly cloudy throughout the day. And we also have a pretty good chance of wetting rain, so about 80% chance of wetting rain, which is 1/10 of an inch or more. And then we also have about 25% of seeing at least 1/2 inch of rain from Wednesday night through Thursday night. After that, we do have a slight warming and drying trend this weekend, but nothing significant, not quite to the temperatures that we've seen recently, or as dry as it's been. For smoke, I know that impacts everyone, including us. It will not get better before Wednesday, but once that cold front comes through and we get the rain moving in here with the showers, it'll be much improved late Wednesday night through Friday morning. End of report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, folks. John Kern, Fire Behavior. Fire behavior is the science and study of where our fire currently is and where it's going to be in the near and the far future. We use a lot of different tools to look at the fuels, the weather, the topography, to make some estimates of what the fire is doing, where it's going to go, what kind of spotting they'll see, what kind of flame lengths, rates of spread, what kind of equipment it's going to take to get out there in front of it. And then we give that information to operations, and they decide how they're going to use that information on how to fight the fire and keep us all safe and keep the folks safe there. So that's what I do, look at the fuels, weather, and topography. So we just heard about the weather there. It has been dry, it's been hot. We've been setting records for energy release component, which just is a measurement of how dry the fuels are, how much heat comes off it when a square foot of it burns. And those have been really high. In the past couple of days, we've added some stronger winds to it, having our inversion mix out a little bit earlier, gets that sunshine on our fuels. And our fire has been driven by a lot of the fine fuels, which are really fine, things like the grasses, leaves, and needles, things like that carrying it. But also we've got a lot of these, what they call 1,000-hour fuels, which are the large logs over 8 inches in diameter. And they take a long time for those to dry out. They take all summer to dry out, and they're dry now. They're actually about 11% dry. 11% of their weight is from moisture, so they call that 11% fuel moisture. And that's actually drier than a 2x4 you buy at Lowe's or Home Depot or your local Kill Dry shop here. So your fuels are really dry out there. Your topography, very steep from Florida. And out here it looks steep, so when I'm up on the mountain there itself and the rocks are tumbling down, it is truly steep out there. And that's how the fire reacts to it too as well. So we've seen steady moving along. When we have a lot of wind on our fire and sunshine can get to it, we get these big days of, in the past, 5,000 acres of growth and things like that. And that has been taming down a little bit as we move a little bit later into our season here. I'll talk a little bit about our next couple of days here. We can see the different color coding there. On Tuesday, we see some of the pink and some of the yellow. That indicates more dangerous burning, more active burning is expected out there because of the temperature and the relative humidities out there, especially in our winds a little bit. We look at the local folks here. We talk to the Boise National Forest and the experts here, we listen to them first and defer to their expertise. And they've got a thing called a pocket card that shows some of the trigger points that we as folks coming in from outside should be paying special attention to. I mean, it's all theories that we understand, but they say, here you really need to watch it when it gets 80 degrees or greater, when the relative humidity gets below 20, when the winds start blowing 20 miles an hour or more, or that ERC gets about 61. That's when you guys really need to watch out. So they let us know that, and we're actually within those parameters 2 out of those 4 the past couple of days, and that's why we've seen this pickup in activity out there the past couple of days. And so we see that continuing on here Tuesday with our relative humidities down in the 14%, but then we see Wednesday a lot more green in there, and that's what we like. But it's going to take a couple of days. Like I said, it takes those large fuels a long time to get dry enough to burn. It also takes them a long time to start absorbing some of those nice 55 RH overnight, 100% RH, even some of that rain may take a few days for those 1,000-hour fuels to react to it. But it's going to help us out. It's going to help us out a lot. But it may take us a little while. There's still be a lot of smoldering out there. We need to make sure our lines stay in place. This probably isn't what they call a season-ending event, but it may be a season-slowing event. Because, like I was saying there, that we're getting into that part of the season where we also look at those charts about energy release, where they go up, 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 up in July and August. But then they start coming down again. We know that the days are getting shorter. They get shorter by about 3 minutes a day. So in our 14 days here, we're actually going to see about 45 minutes less of daylight from when we start our tour to when we end, so almost an hour's less. Sunlight will be hitting our fuels, that's good. The sun angle is actually lower, so it's not shining deep into those north-south canyons anymore, so they won't be getting that sunshine as that sun gets lower. So things are obviously working in our favor. Each one of these little green bursts where we get some rain on our fire is certainly going to help, but it may not be season ending. We're still a little bit early in our season to hope that this is going to end it for us, but we're looking for a busy day tomorrow. Most of our fire will be moving around laterally and flanking and backing with flame lengths of about 3 feet or less, but there will be areas where we get alignment of our wind, those steep slopes, and those dry fuels. If we get all 3 of those together, the fire will make uphill runs, and it did. We saw some of that yesterday. There's one cloud out there that is actually the base of some smoke coming up off of Bulldog that I'm sure we'll hear about with operations there. So we're going to have a few more days of that where it makes these long runs. Most of it's well interior, not on our edges where we've got our firefighters and our control line, but well to the interior. There is still active fire going on. We expect that to continue with its 20 and 30 foot of flame lengths there on the interior and some of the spotting going on in there still. But we expect that to continue tomorrow. Wednesday, a little bit better than Thursday. We should be back to just flanking and smoldering and things like that for a few days at least. And then we'll see how our weather shakes out as we get a little better confidence in our forecast once we get closer to 7 days out. So that's what I've got for you, and we'll be around for questions later. Thanks.
Was pointing at myself. All right.
My name is Donovan Walker. I'm the Planning Operations Trainee for Great Basin Team 5, and it's good to be here again. It's here on Friday. Apparently I've been on Facebook a lot, and we're going to continue doing that, giving updates. What's going on in the fire, trying to keep everyone up to date and informed of what's going on. And yesterday was kind of a rowdy day for fires, and there was a lot going on. There was the right conditions at the right time that started really early in the day. So it was a busy day on a lot of the fires. An example of that, we'll look at our fires real quick before I go around the horn on it. The interior fire spread that the fire behavior analyst was speaking about definitely made a little push in, but our control line, our objective is keeping fire east of this. That protects all of our values of risk around. We want fire to be here and not be threatening on our lines up here. So largely that happened there. Between the 2 fires, we continue to watch a little bit of fire spread, taking chunks at a time. All of this was modeled. These are things that weren't a surprise to us yesterday. We had people in the right places at the right times watching what they needed to be watching. So we could act where we needed to act if we needed to act. Around Scout Mountain Lookout here, you'll notice a little pocket in here that cleaned up some areas in there. This lower part came a little bit further in. I was able to fly this earlier today with a couple of the other ops folks around midday, and it was was still really, really smoky. Yesterday by midday, it was clearing up about what it was outside today. So just that alone was telling us it's not going to be the same kind of day. There's still going to be some burning this afternoon and evening now that we're getting sun down on the fuels. That heats them up a little bit, and all those other things come together to make things burn a little bit. But it's a much shorter burn period today. The other thing that was going along, yes, we had growth on our fires, but if you look to the north here a little bit, if you'll pull that down. Fire to our north here had significant growth on this, and this is part of the really big plume that everyone was able to see yesterday, along with some fires around Cascade as well. Like everything reacted the same way. It's the same fuel type in a lot of places, and the same kind of weather and terrain influences and alignment, these different terms that you're hearing, they react the same everywhere. The fuels are what the fuels are. They're very, very particular about getting a bunch of things stacked up in the right direction for them to want to do, big things and make big gains. So a lot of what you saw yesterday wasn't even the fires around here. It was a fire to the north, I guess is the point of that. We can go back to our fires here. Excuse me. So, actions continue to be the same around Silver Creek, around the different values of risk that we have up in there. We've got Ranger Station, there's some other structures in there, residents in there, Boiling Springs. All of that work continues. This is an ongoing project for us to really make sure that everything has the right amount of fuels management in there to modify fire behavior. If fire gets in there, it's something that's easily controllable by the resources we have on scene, which are several in our structure and initial attack group that we have, as well as the division resources that are up there. They continue to make the road access better, wider, as far as like the thinning of the trees, widening things out, thinning out, mulching, all the different activities that we do, all that continues. And we're going to be continuing looking at a little piece, just a little piece to the north to tie into another value risk within our area. And then moving down along the west side of the Bulldog, very secure, nothing changed there yesterday. Everything held nicely. Our indirect line here, we continue to watch that for when this in here tells us it's time to do that, or anything in here. We're not seeing anything this far in here. What we do see every now and again is places where the fire gets to the bottom of a drainage and it wants to come back uphill. Fires and bears are about the only things that move super quick uphill. And we see that, and sometimes there's opportunities to look and try and meet that fire in the middle somewhere. And so we look for opportunities like that. Sometimes they present themselves, sometimes they don't. And there can be operations to help mitigate that fire spread. Along the western side of the Nellie Fire, this is largely in a patrol status for us. We have crews in there because they're part of the operation if we need it in here. So they're spread out along there, they're looking every day, they're patrolling, they're gridding, and they're not finding anything, and that's good for us. Same thing around the Highway 17 corridor. Areas in here, we've started a little bit of suppression, repair on a couple of things that were kind of behind where folks live and things like that, just so we can be done with those areas and not be bothering people anymore in those areas. Also working on some of the roads. We've got several graders into the fire, several water tenders into the fire that we're starting to do some grading. And there's been a lot of high traffic areas, right, in a lot of these areas around the entire fire and throughout. So we're starting to address that, getting some of that repaired on the roads, particularly on the Triple Nickel, and then in particular the 582. We're starting to take a look at out of Loman, the one that comes around, and start to look at that. On the east side, we didn't see anything really. There was a lot of opportunities. There's a couple of little areas that showed very little heat, and it's not going anywhere. It's in that Pioneer Fire burn scar, and so that remains in a confined status. We're aware of it, we patrol it, but it's not something that we're actively engaging in. Around the north side, when we're getting towards the Deadwood here, we're looking at one little piece. It was bigger the last time we spoke. It's down to a little piece about right here that's still showing heat in there. Still got a ton of crews and resources up at Deadwood that are handling all of this around here. This is nice, mopped up. They're not seeing a smoke for several days in here, within several hundred feet, getting close to 100 yards of the fire line, which is a really good mop up and control standard that we like to use. All this stuff in here continues to be mopped up. That's going to be several more days in there. There's a lot of fuel in there, and it's not continuous solid black. It's a patch here, it's a patch there, and it's just very labor intensive to go through that, and that's why we have so many crews up there. And we continue to look for direct opportunities here. We also continue some, if you'll scroll down just a little bit on the map. Other way, I need to see the north. More, yep. So we've completed this. This is the first check line, contingency line there. We don't want this fire to come back around towards the west. We want to keep the fire east of the Triple Nickel, and I'd really like to keep it east of this. But this road had been worked up to about here, proposed up to here. You see that's different between black and purple. This is what we're working on right now. And then we're going to take it to the next step up to Deadwood Outfitters. So we're putting that on our plan just to continue to make sure that we've got some good buffer. There's values at risk up here that were identified for our team, and we want to ensure that we have some protection up there if anything gets rowdy up there. I'm going to say that's going to be the end of my update for you guys. If there's any questions, I'm around for questions after. Thank you. Isaac.
All right, what's the drink? All right, thank you. All right, my name is Isaac Browning, and I'm operation. This particular role I'm performing as strategic operations. So really my roles or responsibilities is working with a lot of people, getting a lot of information. So you've heard from operations, we got our field operations out in the field. So I work with those folks. I work with all the subject matter experts in the room, like our FBANs, or our fire behavior analyst, our long-term analyst, our weather folks, and with the rest of the team. What we do is we look for other strategic opportunities to, maybe for lack of a better term, put a squeeze on this fire. So basically one of the things that we've came up with is we found an opportunity after doing a lot of this analysis. One of the big things we're looking at as we're analyzing this plan is the risk to our firefighters out there in the field as well. So I'll kind of give you guys a little bit of a run through that real quick, and afterwards, if you guys have questions, be happy to talk to you about those. So if we can go out a little bit, pan out a little bit. Where's the primary line? Okay. So if you remember on Donovan's part of his presentation, we have that primary line that's out here to the west along the 668 road. And that was identified before we got here. We continue to fortify that road and strengthen that road if we needed that road. As we were looking at this fire and where the fire's at, as FBAN mentioned and Donovan mentioned, nothing's working for me today. We have fire down in this little corner over here. We've got fire up in between in here, and then a little bit of fire down in here. So one of the things we're looking at, if you're familiar with this area, there's a real predominant ridge that goes right here off the end of Scott Mountain and where the Bureau of Reclamation communication towers is. And then there's another prominent ridge just right here off the edge. One of the strategies we're looking at doing is, first of all, is providing point protection to the value risk up there on the Scott Mountain, the lookout and the Bureau of Reclamation communication tower. And then along with that, we have what we call a UAS, or unmanned drones per se. They can drop balls that start fire, so it'd be a little bit of firing is what we're doing. You've heard the FBAN talk about, one of the things we're seeing is the fire getting down low, and everything's getting in alignment and it's running up faster than the bear. So we're trying to mitigate that and to lessen that impact. So if we can scroll in a little bit closer. And I'll just provide you a real quick little example. Over here we've got a green stringer, for example. What we don't want to happen is the fire get established in the bottom, and what that'll do is that'll run up to that ridge top, and what tends to happen is that fire, because of its intensity, will spot over the backside of that ridge and cause a lot more spot fire. So our strategy is to actually put fire on the top. And again, this is all timing. We're not just going to go out there and light that ridge and walk away. This will all be done in coordination with where the main fire is set up, wherever that may be. So if we get fire in that bottom of that drainage, we may bring the drone in and light the top of that. What that's going to allow that fire to do is back down that hill, less intense, and then when that bottom fire, they'll meet in the middle somewhere. So that's our big overall strategy with that burning. Talking to the folks in the field, we have real high confidence with this being a successful plan for a lot of reasons. One, we're going to minimize the spots. Two is if we do get some spots, this ridge here allows our firefighters potentially an anchor to safely address any of those spots that may come over that ridge there. Additionally, we talked about the value risk. Sorry, I've been saying this all day long. Scott Mountain and the comp site, that will all be done in conjunction with where the fire's at the time that our folks are in there. And the big thing is the big plus for us is we're not doing this with firefighters on the ground. We're doing this with a drone. So all that action is being done with the drone, and we're not putting firefighters at risk out there dragging fire along like we may have to do down here on this contingency line. So that's really our overall plan for what we're looking at this point in time. And I'll answer any questions afterwards.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Engelhardt. I am just very grateful to be up in service to your community. I think one of the things you probably experience as a community is coming to these public meetings and seeing agency administrators change a number of different times. Well, I just want to acknowledge that, lay that out on the table. The reality is we do change over our agency administrators, and I don't know you and you don't know me, but I did want to say it has been an honor and privilege to serve rural America in the Western United States in many places, many locations as agency administrator. And I've also had fire in my backyard, as have many of our firefighters here. So these are opportunities for us to pay it forward to other communities that are struggling to find the resources, local units to find the resources, to battle these blazes, to come on into communities and help along, sharing the information, sharing the experience here in your community, and help carry that load for you. And so that's why I'm here, is to help carry the load, shoulder the load of what's going on. But I completely acknowledge that, in 2 weeks, I'll leave. So I just wanted to just say that I know that happens to communities and you see different faces. But I'm in here, while I'm here, I'm going to give everything I've got to be in service to you all. Because it means something to me. It's not just a job, I can tell you that. We also have a lot of firefighters out there. 812 firefighters out there doing one heck of a job. As I moved in to take over as agency administrator of this fire, I'm working under the guidance and coach of another agency administrator, Brian, over here, Brian Monroe. He and I are both up from the state of Utah, helping out Idaho in trying times, for sure. And there are trying times down in Utah too, where our agency administrators up in Idaho come down to help us as well. I definitely got a sense that this incident management team that we have managing the Middle Fork complex has been incredibly talented, incredibly efficient, incredibly capable in preparing, using information, data, observation, firefighter experience, running all sorts of scenarios in fire behavior to mitigate the risks to the values that are out on the landscape, and manage this fire in a way that protects those values with great efficiency. I think as we look today, as was presented by operations here, strategic operations, was an example of that. Our incident management team proposing to and discussing with the agency administrators of the fire, including state agency administrators as well, deans in the room as well, just to discuss an added opportunity that we saw on the landscape to provide for commensurate with weighing and assessing firefighter risk and risk to firefighters out there to implement a plan, an additional opportunity for us to protect the highest values at risk from this particular fire. And of course, that was the space in between the two fires as they grow together, and that southeastern run where we already have one line in place. If we get an opportunity, we want to put another chance in, another protection in, another means for us to protect the highest values down here in the communities of Garden Valley and Crouch, along with all of the infrastructure and the highways that run down the valley. And we think that by doing that, we're providing an added opportunity to make sure that your homes, your families, the infrastructure that is down here in the valley is protected from the wildfire, from the Middle Fork complex. So that's just one example of continuing to think, continuing to assess, continuing to analyze, and continuing to look for opportunities to provide an added protection for values at risk. And that additional opportunity, we have a high degree of confidence that that is going to be successfully implemented. I wanted to also just acknowledge that we definitely had, we're in the fall of the year, and people are gathering firewood this time of year. People are gearing up for hunting seasons, and yesterday's sky was a clear example. There's a lot of fire out on this landscape surrounding a lot of communities in this area. A lot of plumes. In fact, personally, I just had never seen anything quite like that yesterday. And I want to share in that with you and just say, certainly concerning, and I understand that concern. I share that concern. And it's certainly something that I acknowledge probably affected you as a community as you saw what occurred yesterday. And just want to let you know, we see that, and we know there's a lot of strain out there. And we're here to listen, to ask you questions, and also to make sure that you're provided accurate, timely information that allows you to assess your lives, what matters to you, what's important to you, and convey that back to the command and fire. I did also just want to say that in looking at those closures and looking at how much landscape is affected by closures, it's very important that we get your cooperation in those closures. We've had a few folks trying to move into the closure areas, and the biggest issue with that is, first of all, our number one priority on this fire, number one value in everything we live is community and firefighter safety, protection of life and property, right? So that's what we're looking for. And so each time someone maybe doesn't understand the closures or moves into those closures trying to take advantage, concerned about their hunting permit or whatnot, we end up in a situation where we do have to track that individual, figure out where that individual is, and if you're camping back in there, we may have to pull resources off the line in order to maybe go retrieve that individual and get that individual out of harm's way. That doesn't allow us to do our job. And so I'm just compassionately just asking you, please, please, please help us do our job. Now, most folks are absolutely abiding by those closure orders. It's certainly not frequent that that's happened, but help me share that message in the community about the importance of abiding by those closure orders for the time being. I can promise you we are reassessing those closure orders in a timely manner and on a regular basis. And when they can be lifted, they will. Once we know and can make sure that we are not exposing anyone to added risk, and we have the resources to manage the fact of more individuals in these spaces out on the landscape. Right now, we're not in that place, but we could be in that place sometime soon. So let's just hold together as a community, and please help me share that message. Again, we're here to answer your questions tonight. We're here to make sure that you get all the information that you feel you need. As I said, to assess your lives, to assess what you care about, and act accordingly. And so I just wanted to make sure that we do that this evening. And I also want to assure that Brian and I, we're listening, working with our cooperators. We meet with our cooperators. We were meeting with them every day. We agreed this morning we would meet with them 3 times a week. At this point in time, we can always change that, and we have a total open door policy with our cooperators, such as our sheriff, such as our local fire folks and VFDs and the local resources that we have around here. And we do have that open door to you all tonight. This is your opportunity to ask those questions and to visit with us all. And I look forward to getting to know you all. I look forward to working on your behalf in service to your community. And as I said, it's one of the greatest honors that I have. So thank you for coming this evening, and I'll turn it over to our incident commander.
Thanks, Michael. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. I see some returning faces and some new faces. So like our strategic ops was talking about, when we first got here, this was our primary line right here. You've probably heard that before. And looking at that, what's behind it, so it starts hitting communities and things, there's not many opportunities there. There's no other opportunities once it crosses that line. So I tasked and challenged the team to come up with another opportunity. And so that's what we were talking about. Isaac was talking about this burning area in the middle. This gives us a lot of room. Even if it doesn't work, it's still an opportunity that we can cut this fire off way interior and not even get close to this last perimeter line, right? So that we've spent 4 days working to find this opportunity. So kudos to you guys for finding this. And we might not do it depending on the weather, but it's an opportunity, right, to try and reduce the size of this fire. So our team's role as an incident commander, we also have deputy incident commanders. So one of the deputy incident commanders that I rolled with, Tony DeMaster. Stand up, Tony. So Tony DeMaster's worked on this for us in this same woods for 20, 30 years. And some of you may know him or heard the name, but Tony's been a great asset for the local knowledge, being on this force and seeing fires. So thanks for being here, Tony. And one of the smartest things when I became incident commander of Great Basin Team 5 was hiring my next deputy incident commander. What's the quote they always say, behind a good man is a great woman? Well, Gwen Sanchez, everybody.
Nothing like your boss throwing you out there, right? So my name is Gwen Sanchez, and I'm the Deputy Incident Commander for Great Basin Team 5, and it's just a privilege to be here in your community and be able to talk to you guys tonight. Yesterday was pretty impressive, even for a firefighter that's been doing this for 25 years. yesterday was impressive. And it was a little scary too. And I have to tell you, as an incident commander and someone who has lost firefighters, you look at that column and there's a lot of emotion that comes with that. You know that it means a lot of hurt for a lot of people. You know that there's a lot of risk to firefighters because of that column. There's somehow some beauty and interest in columns like that. There's just a lot of really mixed emotion. I think for me, what I'm constantly doing as an incident commander is just ensuring myself that we've got the right people in the right places doing the right thing. And that's what I want to make sure that all of you guys know. We've spent a lot of time over the course of the last few days making sure that we had the right people in the right place, and we were working really hard to do the right thing, to protect all the communities, to serve all of you well, to make sure that we can avoid, hopefully, as much as possible from happening, and really minimizing bad things like that. I do want to say that some of our neighboring fires did not fare as well as we did yesterday. We actually have made some progress, and that progress over the course of the last couple of weeks has really given us the upper hand on this fire. And because of that, we didn't see the growth that some of these other incidents had seen. We were asked to provide some support to some of the other fires, and I'm really thankful that we were able to kick loose a couple helicopters and a few engines to help out. Those engines and helicopters, the helicopters were flying nonstop. We were watching it yesterday, and again, just the work and effort, the coordination that went into that was something to be pretty proud of. And got a note back that the engines that we sent worked all through the night in people's backyards, trying to secure those communities and make sure that we did not, trying to keep every resident standing. And so it's pretty impressive that those firefighters worked all day and they saw the challenge, and they absolutely didn't hesitate when we asked them, can you go do this all night? And they did it. And it's moments like that make me pretty darn proud as an incident commander, and I think a lot of the reason why I come back and do this every year. It's kind of hard to be away from family and to be sleeping on the ground, and sometimes it's cold, and sometimes it's really, really warm, but it's moments like that when you can see the good work and the efforts and just the diligence that our firefighters put in. It's pretty incredible, and I couldn't be more proud. So folks, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate the grace that this community and support that this community has given us, and want to make sure that you guys know that our firefighters really appreciate that. They see it, they feel it, and so thank you for that. And want you to know that they continue to work their tails off to make sure that we are giving the support to all of the communities in and around the area. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Gwen. So with that, we're going to open the floor to questions, and just raise your hand and we'll bring you guys a microphone. I have several questions, so if they get to be too many, just tell me to stop. The first one is, obviously these fires require a lot of water at a time of drought. What is the effect on our reservoirs, our rivers, our ponds, and so forth of these efforts, and are you going to have enough water? That's the first question.
Yeah, John Kern, fire behavior. Is that an ops question? Is it a weather? Is it a rain question? Is it an opera? Fire behavior. I would say that it looks like we're doing well. It's great to have that reservoir there that we can pull out of. In fact, I was on one of the flights, we were talking to our pilot about that, and he said it looks like there's still plenty of water in there. A lot of what we do to secure the line is, you'll hear us talk about putting in line, and we mean scraping away the vegetation that's out there with either hand tools or bulldozers, excavators, all sorts of heavy equipment that you'll see out there. So a lot of it is put out just with moving you have to break the fire triangle of fuel, heat, and oxygen, and remove the fuel of it. So it doesn't take a lot of water. We do go back in and do that mop up. They talk about they want to have about 200 feet from the edge of the fire line in. That part of mopping up is done with water, and these folks are trained from the beginning, and they understand how difficult it is to get that water. They treat it very preciously because they're carrying it often on their back in 5-gallon, and those weigh quite a bit, 8 pounds per gallon there. So they're in there. They are squirting it from very close. They're not sitting back and just spraying water on stuff. They're getting in there. They're scraping at it with hand tools. They're taking their glove off and saying, "Wait, this part is hot," and hitting the water right there. So far so good with the water. And our rain chart there was showing that we should get a little bit more there, but I don't think I'm hearing the water is our shortage currently. Next question.
The next question is, why is there so much difference between what we see in Google Maps and what we see on maps here? You guys are obviously having to use different data, maybe?
What is it you're seeing on Google Earth? Is it like the fire edge or?
Well, like on Google Maps, Bulldog and Nellie have connected, and clearly that's not the case.
Correct, that is not the case. I was just up there myself with our iNet and they not come together. So they're probably using different satellite imagery. There is a thing called VEERS, which I don't know what it stands for. That's just called MODIS. I don't know what that stands for. But I do know that the VEERS one has got like like a 30-meter resolution, and some are like 1 kilometer resolution. So I do know that when I see a MODIS dot on there, it is saying somewhere in this large square there was heat detected by a satellite. And so if you put enough of those together, it will show that. And another thing that they will do, I know, is so this fire, we saw that column come up, and there was a lot of heat in the upper part of that column, and in fact some embers and things like that, and some of the satellites will pick that up and transpose that down onto the background. In fact, it's the column leaning over the land in front of it. So it's scientific stuff that I'm not actually answering about. But trust us, so each night we do these hard red lines, and those dots on there are hard and fast from an airplane over our fire that goes back and forth with infrared, and that's sent right to us. So that's pretty rock solid location.
So it's kind of a question of granularity then.
Yep, exactly, at the resolution.
All right. Why do you think these massive fires and plumes and all of this sort of thing are happening in ways that people like Gwen Sanchez have never seen before? And is there a way to prevent this sort of thing in the future? That's the last one.
Since you called me out, ma'am, I'll take a shot at that one. You know, it's a hard question. When I started this profession, 25 years ago, a large fire was 30,000 acres. And we can do that in a day now. I do think that our climate is trending warmer. And I think because of that, our fuels are becoming drier. Our fire seasons have absolutely become longer. And I think our events are becoming, as a result of all of those things, much bigger. So what I mean by that is a weather and fire behavior event that took place 30 years ago is much different than what we see today. It's amplified and by multitudes. So it is not uncommon for us to see a 30,000 acre run on a wildfire today. When I started, that was a large fire, period. And so I think it's just a combination of all of those, and the complexities have just continued to increase, and I'm not sure that that trend is going to stop until we can get ahead of a lot of the struggles we have. I'll go out on a limb and say that a large part of what we do as wildland firefighters is also trying to figure out a way to mitigate fire and trying to figure out ways to introduce fire onto the landscape in these fire-prone areas at a time and a place that we can safely do it, because that's really the only way we're going to get ahead of the fire problem is by continuing to introduce fire and create healthier ecosystems, more resilient ecosystems. That's our goal, right? And so I think that we're in that mindset. We got a lot of work to do, but I am really proud of the collective interagency efforts over the last few years to head in that direction. And I'm hopeful that in the next few years, we can start seeing some of those effects on our communities and the resiliency begin to increase in and around our communities as a result of those efforts.
Do we have any more questions today?
I'm curious, I've heard talk of these, the Bulldog and Nellie coming together, and I haven't heard that it can, so I've heard talk that they'll come together, and I wonder if and why that's an issue. What do you think will happen? Why do you care?
Oh, we care, I know that one. It isn't a great concern for us. I mean, when we came in, the risks, things that we were most worried about were identified by the locals here and have been put on our maps as strategic things that we're studying and really fighting to keep the fire away from. So you're right. Whether these come together or not, and when they come together, I think, isn't going to be tactically as significant as us worrying about what's on the outside and the old fire scars. We do not expect there to be a big blow up if they come together. Sometimes when two fires come together, they kind of lean together and add more lift than just one fire alone or two fires separately burning through an area there. We don't expect that to be an issue here, that it would be an explosive coming together or anything. It'll just be coming together and just new places of new fire engine perimeter out there. So we'll keep an eye on it. In fact, one of our plans, if everything works out, is to pull a little bit along the ridge there, let them gently come together.
Do we have any other questions tonight?
When a new lightning strike fire starts near an existing management area, is that assigned to the management team or is that a new incident? And do you guys have any information on the Miller fire?
I can't speak specifically to the Miller fire, but what I can tell you is we have an identified initial attack responsibility area that's been delegated to our team. We use a boundary called a temporary flight restriction. It's a known boundary on a map that we know we can operate in with complete control of what's going on and the resources on the ground, the air, and that coordination within those things. We have a plan in place. We have an entire group that's assigned to that in our incident action plan structure and IA group. Currently with, I want to say, I think the batteries are dying on this. But anyways,
It's at least 9 engines. It's coming up. We sent 8 engines over to Lava yesterday and a division supervisor. We had a lot more in there. The reason we have that group created so large, it's not just for the structure need here, it is for other IA. Even though this wasn't IA on the Lava, it was an immediate need, almost unprecedented, right? Because resources are so strapped around here. And we had the capability, identified capability, already built into our plan to be able to help. That was also part of what we were asked to do, is to be able to provide help if it's nearby, if it's an initial attack that we can do, even if it's outside of that TFR. If there's a need by the forest, the local agency, to provide assistance, they contact us, and we will assign resources on what we call Lend-Lease. And they go out, they help it to stabilize the situation. Catch a fire small, that's the best thing all the time. Initial attack is the main part of what all of our fire responsibilities are at home, is to catch fire small. It's really only about 2, maybe 3% of all fires that happen nationally that turn into large fires. We're really good at initial attack. Sometimes conditions exceed what our capabilities are when we get these large fires and things like that. So, yes, we have a plan to answer your question. We implement it daily. We've done it several times since we've been in command for only the last several days here.
The Miller fire he's referring to is the one other night that's near Logan that we sent, the Helitack crew and put it out.
So that was that situation. Outside of our initial attack responsibility, we were asked for assistance. We provided a ship with an initial attack crew that went and helped contain that fire to 20-something acres, if that was the Miller fire. Contained that night. That's outstanding. That's what we want to be able to continue to provide those kinds of services. We're not going to send everything away because we have responsibilities here, right, to you guys and to our objectives that we're trying to continue to obtain on this fire. And yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Well, if there's no other questions, we can wrap this up. And I'd just like to thank everybody for coming and continuing to support us. Have a very